Today on Saturday in the Garage, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that are very important to all woodworkers. The two things that I consider the most important. The first thing is accuracy. Now, we have lots of tools that we use all the time in the shop for accuracy that are all designed to give us better product because of the accuracy. But is accuracy the most important thing? Not always. Let me tell you a story that demonstrates what I'm trying to get across. I worked at a shop years ago. The shop was set up in such a way that there were 3 cabinet makers that were all doing a single cabinet a day for a kitchen. You would build it from start to finish. You'd go cut it out, you'd put it together, and by the end of the day, you were supposed to have your one cabinet done for the job. The problem was, not everybody was on the same page as far as consistency. That's the thing I want to talk about. Sometimes consistency is more important than accuracy. That shop was in trouble all the time when we got to the installation stage of the job because the different cabinet makers were all just maybe a little bit off in the way they read a tape measure or read their saw, and just everything was just sometimes just a little bit off. We'd get out on the job, and if they were just a little bit less on one measurement and a little bit more with the guy next door, then there was a noticeable difference in the installation. Consistency is very important. I've also worked for some big production shops, and big production shops do things in stages to guarantee consistency. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that I do. I have a little job upcoming where I have a couple of cabinets that I have to build, and I'm going to show you a couple of the things that I do to guarantee consistency, and then I apply accuracy to that. The upcoming vanity that I have to build has a 1/4 inch solid facing on our melamine panels. In order to make sure that our facing is all the same, we'll start off by milling our board to thickness, then ripping it into strips, going back to the planer. I'll show you the process as we go through it. Okay, let's kind of recap what I did. I milled our wood to 3/4 of an inch so that it was the same as the melamine material that we were going to be using. I cut my material, ripped it to just a little over 1/4 of an inch wide, and then I planed it all down to the exact thicknesses, not the exact thickness of 1/4 inch, but the exact so they're all the same. Let's see how close I got to 1/4 of an inch. We'll take our little thickness gauge here, turn it on, and instead of, I don't know if you can see that or not, but instead of being 0.25, which would be 1/4 of an inch, it's 0.23. So I'm a little less than 1/4 of an inch. The thing is, it doesn't make any difference exactly whether it's 1/4 of an inch because it's exactly the same on every board, so that when I put it together, I'm consistent. Let's cut up a sheet of plywood, see if we can do the same thing. We're getting ready to do some of the other work on our bath vanity to show you how to maybe batch out some of the plywood pieces that you have to cut. Here is some of the drawer material. We're going to be using 5/8 Baltic birch, but one of the things that we want to pay attention to is making sure all our cuts are the same. First thing, all of our drawers are going to be 18 inches deep. Our material is a little wider, But what we're going to do is we're going to cut off, this has a mill end on it. A mill end is the end that comes from your supplier. So we don't ever want to use a mill end. When your board has a mill end, you cut it off. When your plywood has a mill end, you cut that off. Always, because it's a factory end. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Always cut that off. So we're going to cut it 18.5, turn it around and cut it 18 net, and then we'll go back and we'll start cutting the other pieces. So let's get started. These are 8 inches tall, 18 inches long, and by making sure that my final cuts, my 8-inch cuts, were all done at the same time. And you can see how now all of my pieces are the same length and the same height, and I don't have any inconsistency. Keep that in mind when you're doing your work. Accuracy is important, but so is consistency. Learn to be very consistent in your work and apply your accuracy to your consistency, and you'll be a better woodworker, and we'll show you how on Woodworking with Wes.